Now they think 3 versus 4, we can actually turn this around, and Betty proving exactly again what he did against BLG. His positioning and his damage output was fantastic, but the knockup still comes through from Yike. The damage from Caps is too much, and G2, they end up getting an ace as PSG still find 3.
And it's Caps that knocks it down, but it's Broken Blade and Yike. The amount of bouncy castling that was happening to all the members of PSG, continuous flag and drags, Broken Blade with the flash order there towards the start of the fight to set it all up.
Mickey stepping forward, puts the set-plus presence down. Yike across the wall, a possibility, but with the depth charge, Mickey's just locked up, doesn't get an opportunity to move, and Mickey caught out by PSG.
Massive with the dragon spawning in 15 seconds. PSG have put themselves in a great spot. Weaver's wall.
And somewhere on the wrong side of it, Yike trying to join up. Caps in the top lane, does have the TP. Broken Blade's pushing out bot. Riftel's going to charge in. That will be the mid-tier 1 falling. PSG take it. The Drake next on the menu for them would be their 3rd of the game.
Agi is top though, and he doesn't have TP, whereas Caps does. But PSG still going to go for this.
And he's back up. Caps seen by PSG. They know
Caps
he's in the top
TP.
lane. Now he goes out of vision. Can TP. You can see Azure trying to chase him out, making sure he can't TP away, which means that PSG, when they can't catch out Caps, when they can't stop those reinforcements arriving, have to back away from the Drake.
TP is almost up for Agi though, so PSG can play it slow and try to look for the retake.
I mean, I think the problem for PSG is they've already used their tempo to take that mid tower. They've invested a lot. Remember that Maple also used his ultimate to try and catch Hans Summer off. But PSG, they still want to fight.
Redline going in, Fate's call out, Yike flashes forward into the Plasma and into the Blast Cone as PSG scatter to the winds. Caps trying to join up, TP behind as Yike is low. They engage with the Bolt Breaker, followed up by Junja. Stretching strike, pulls in 2. Yike able to escape, but Azure's now on the back line, and Caps is separated from his team. Azure dancing in. The Zelda Vision from Broken Blade will buy him another second. Caps dance into the back of the pit. Zelda Vision going low as Maple will take out Broken Blade. Yike next to fall, and now it's all on Hans Summer and Caps and Mickey. Junja locked against the wall, but it's 2 as PSG just outplay G2 in the team fight. They find 4, only Caps remains standing, but how long will he stand for? He tries to trade back, and Maple sends him into the dirt. He gets 1 in exchange.
And just like that, PSG respond with an ace of their own. They find all 5 members while keeping 3 alive. They're going to put themselves at Dragon Soul Point 2. PSG with incredible team fighting once again.
Big thing there is that on one end you have a core that's actually pretty good at dealing with a tank, whereas on the other end you have Agi creating so much space. This Blast Cone, incredible. Junja denies Broken Blade the entry. The Cataclysm doesn't do anything. And here, the fight starts splitting up. Because of the amount of tank shredding that's available on this Varus, on the Vi as well, they deal with Broken Blade relatively easily. Agi, though, he's not threatened at all. Caps tried to join the top half of the fight, wasn't actually able to. And at this point, PSG have a numbers advantage, able to close it out and set up for that soul point that we were talking about earlier.
Caps is able to get a kill back at the very end here. Nice play from him, realizing there's not a lot he can do. Auto attack combined with the ultimate to get a trade onto Maple, but still, the gold largely remains even, but you're getting to see the impact that Betty can have in these fights. Aja caught off on a side lane.
PSG might set up around the Baron for this. Azure will fall. Broken Blade does still have the TP, as does Caps. So PSG realize all you can get really is vision because you know you're overloading this side of the map. They're trying to delay Azure here so that they have better tempo on the resets. If they can delay him for long enough, maybe they can set up around the Baron themselves. Caps will take him in the end. Might actually just be a tier 2 push in the bot lane, but with the minion wave cleared out, it's a bit harder for G2 to do that. There's the first TP, there's the second. G2 are going for Baron.
You highlighted it perfectly, Medic. They wanted to delay the respawn of Aja as much as humanly possible. Now the double TP invested, they're going to push the mid wave in, and they're going to force PSG into a 4v5.
Weaver's Wall available, Chain of Corruption, Flash for Betty. He is having the tournament of his life for this PSG lineup. Against BLG, he was so consistently the carry. We saw the team damage in the last fight as well. Baron down to 6,000. Junja trying to get in, has the flash, has the smite. Keep his verdict blocked as he dives onto the backline. Junja's off towards the side, he flashes in. The Baron down to 600, and Junja gets it! G2 unable to secure the objective, and will they be able to win the fight? Can PSG continue to advance? G2 already lost 1. The Weaver's Wall on the backline will take out Caps as well, and now it's all on Hans Summer to do everything he can. Maple flashing forward. Hans Summer, can you dance around Maple well enough? Broken Blade will have the elastic slingshot. He'll jump in. It's a triple for Maple so far, holding the elastic slingshot, and G2 will back away as he's rejoined the fight. Broken Blade force away. Hans Summer has to flash, and in the end, it's a Baron for PSG in a 3-for-3 fight.
It's kind of a Hail Mary that G2 G2 is able to win, even though Maple is able to take out Caps. On the flip side, they're able to take down some of the members, but they lost the Baron. It's PSG that picks it up. 4 members still alive. I think G2 could have also gone for the push on mid or try and force some cooldowns, leave it at that, but the Baron actually ends up going to PSG, meaning that they're the one that take or that end up with the advantage.
We need to keep our eyes on Mickey in the replay because he's going to be the factor that's supposed to try and keep Ginger out of the pit. You can see him channeling the ultimate, only connects onto the Nautilus, who still finds a way in. Ginger then goes over the wall to avoid the Keeper's verdict. And then the smite comes through. An early smite from Yike is punished by Junja, and then immediately they turn their attention on the Caps. Good positioning from Betty as Mickey tries to do everything that he can to keep him out of the fight. Maple finds his way onto Caps to shut him down, but a nice ulti from Yike turns the fight back in the favor of G2. Ends up being in a 4 versus 5. A favorable fight for G2, but the Baron's still in favor of PSG.
And Drake up in 90 seconds time. It would be sold for PSG. 9-2 now for Maple. 2.5 items complete. He is absolutely ripping through this G2 lineup, especially with the Leandries, to get his way through those tanks.
One upside here for G2 is that there's not a lot of Baron buffs left because of the way the fight played out. I don't think Aji actually got it because he was still dead when the Baron fell, meaning that I'm pretty sure it's only Maple that is sitting on it right now. So you can't really rely on the side lane pressure the way that you normally can with the Baron, but it's still going to allow you to get a great tempo back in here. Dragon is going to spawn in about a minute, and PSG should be the favorites to take that. G2 is going to have to find an incredible team fight. I'm going to look towards Broken Blade in particular. Betty needs to be eliminated early in the fight, and he doesn't have his flash.
I think so many of these fights have just been very disjointed from G2. We think back to the first top lane fight, where G2 was able to split the fight in their favor, but a lot of the fights we've seen have been on PSG's terms. They were the ones that were able to avoid a lot of the initial engage coming out from Yike. They then were able to find a pick onto Mickey. PSG have just been very patient in their approach to the fights, and now with control over mid and cleansing out of this vision, they're setting themselves up nicely for the 4th Dragon.
Caps spotted an award, BB2, seismic shove back. Caps might look to the backline. Maple, a key target as well, alongside Betty. Caps jumps across the wall. There's the depth charge. Keeper's verdict knocks out Maple, and now BB begins to party, bouncing in. Ginger locked into the wall, and it's all on Betty. Weaver's wall back in, separates the team. Elastic shot forward as Azure is caught all unawares by G2. They find 3, they're looking for more. As Caps dives in, he wants to make it 4. This tower's enough to keep Maple alive for a second, but there's the 4th. Only Betty survives, and Caps is having none of that. Knocked back, boom, boom, boom. It's 5-0.
And a clean ace out of seemingly nowhere. PSG, they get the Baron, they get a good setup, but they overstep in the enemy jungle. They seem split on the call. Maple wasn't there when the fight started, their biggest damage dealer thus far.
G2 finally got the team fight that they were looking for. They're able to execute on the front to back. And when we get a look at the replay, that's exactly what they do. They don't do anything clever. They just hit the target in front of them. Initiation from Woody onto Broken Blade means that Caps now has a lot less to be afraid of. Archer is split off from the rest of the team behind the wall. And look at that, they just focus the Vi, focus the Nautilus. Maple gets knocked away by Mickey, once again having a fantastic performance on the Poppy. And Caps and Hans are left completely untouched to allow for the chase down of PSG.
The use of the seismic shove, the unraveled earth early by Maple, only onto Broken Blade, meant that G2 just had so much freedom to jump forward and jump forward and jump forward. Mickey knocking Maple out of the fight as well. And as much as, you know, we talk about Jinx as a reset champion, Viego a reset champion, Tristana's the quintessential reset champion. You get those kills, you jump forward, and Caps doing 8k in that last fight.
And Mickey, I think this Poppy game has been a bit more up and down, but that ultimate might be the difference maker, right? The fact that Maple isn't actually able, was sitting at that point at 9-2, and so good as well as one of the only members in his team is actually shredding tanks. And you saw the front line from G2, they just didn't take any damage because the Leandries and Crypt Bloom, Talia wasn't there.
Really importantly for PSG, though, it is only one Drake. We talked about how vital it can be to get onto Soul Point early. The Baron's up in 55 seconds. All their vision is set up around the Baron side. It's a roller coaster of not only gold, but emotions, I think, for a lot of people during this game. As we see G2 investing in bot side vision, they'll likely reset and then play up towards the top side to take control of that Baron pit once again.
It's a really interesting dynamic where it feels like a lot of the fights are being determined by the impact of the mid laners. The problem for Maple now is Caps is about to hit level 16. He is well and truly online, and in a battle of who can take out the enemy front line, I feel like that it's just slightly favored for Caps right now. Maple, though, still a huge threat. 9 kills, 3 items completed. He can't afford to be underestimated. And what we've seen is, as Chronicle was saying, this game is largely about execution of the team fights. Whoever can get that better start will ultimately be able to clean up. And so even though G2 find themselves with the goal lead for now, I wouldn't rest on your laurels, because PSG, they're poised to find a good fight. And if they can, this game can quickly turn once again.
Then the PSG versus BLG series. BLG, they took some liberties with some of the engages, but PSG was just sitting there patiently waiting. It was also with Aji on the Cassante, trying to look for the comeback team. If you're in a teamfight composition, you're sitting on soul point, and you're like, what, like 3k gold behind at 27 minutes? In the grand scheme of things, I don't think PSG is going to be too worried, but we do need to see them. I think the biggest changes in a lot of the fights have been, does Mickey knock away a couple of key targets? And in the last one, he was successful. In the Baron fight, wasn't able to. And that is going to be, I think, one of the big difference makers as we get here. And towards the Baron, I feel like either team can use Baron as a tool. Actually flipping it after the last play, I would shy away from.
Unless you're PSG, just take it, you know? Junjo can just jump across the wall and secure it. For G2, it looks like they're going to split the map a little bit. Caps is pushing in the bot lane. My expectation is here, G2 just want to start it and maybe get the TP out of Maple. Caps will continue to push in. They just see it. They're just stepping. Who matches Caps in a side lane right now? Maple can clear the wave, but if there's a couple of minions there, Caps has so much free time with it. Junja's actually going towards the bottom side of the map, so the jungler not here. G2 won't be aware of that completely. Caps is backing. Junja's looking for that, but Maple's walking away. Does have that Weaver's Wall. Junja now in the mid lane, seen by G2, and they pull away from the Baron.
Patience was crucial here for G2, but ultimately they walk away with the objective. Junja being on the bot side of the map was a very dangerous position for PSG to find themselves in, but the good news is that he wasn't spotted. So G2, they back away from the Baron. They're happy enough with the tier 2. Caps, though, Bloodthirster, now completed, level 17. We think back to his game 1 versus T1, where he got the Tristana, a good early start, but then he started to falter in the side lane. This time, though, redeeming himself, finding good fights and good pressure on the side lane is very difficult for PSG to manage as the gold lead only grows for G2.
Portable is done now for Aji. That's a big buy, but I would have loved a Frozen Heart. I feel like that item, especially into AA to carry comps, even after all the nerfs, still gets an insane amount of value.
Look again at the map. We see Broken Blade this time, pushing in the top lane, keeping these waves up as PSG is forced to overgroup. They do have control over the mid, but they don't use it to gain access into the bot river. Dragon spawning soon, but there's very little vision control from PSG to actually set up for the objective. Meanwhile, that top wave is just bleeding into the tower.
Right, just trying to trade here. Flash, step up, presence, stop the boat breaker. Broken Blade coming in from the side as well as the 2 tanks. The G2 dive on, they all dodge the chain of corruption, and a great keeper's verdict will knock Woody out of the fight. Azure pulls Yike across the wall, but the chase continues as Caps begins to rain hell. A double for him. Stretching strike brings 2 in, and Caps is ready. Put him in the bouncy castle. It's a triple for Caps. He's gonna make it 4. A quadra. Can Caps cement himself on this series with a penta? He needs 1 more. Maple won't give it to him. Pentas are earned, not given, but G2 win the fight.
And the penta might be denied, but I don't think the Baron is going to be. As G2 again, this time Broken Blade on the flank. Starts it off again together with Yike, and Junja, even with the Sterix, not tanky enough.
G2 just stopped overcomplicating the fight. In the early fights, they kept trying to threaten the back line, but in the last 2, they've just focused the front line. They've leveraged Poppy to knock a member out, create a numbers advantage, and look, this time the target is Vi. Not as tanky as the Cassante, but it doesn't matter. Maple isn't quite in position, and it just becomes a straight-up front-to-back fight. The Norless gets knocked away, the utility is gone. Betty can do very little, as G2 just mow down the front line.
G2 though looking for a catch in the sideline here already. Maple's down. Junja trying to dance around it. Woody there as well. Azure going in. Hans Summer flashes away from the Pathmaker. Broken Blade on the backline. Junja still down to half HP, but Caps is ready to join the party. Plays out the minion wave. PSG lost 1. Looks like they were the ones initiating the play to dive in. Elastic slingshot into the knockback. Woody able to buff away with the Q, but Caps continues to chase, and all it takes is a couple of autos with a bomb on your head for Caps to take you out. Azure brings Broken Blade back. He has the cell division though. As Caps walks through the tower, it's another for Caps. He's legendary, not only in the LEC, but here on the MSI stage.
G2 wipe PSG once again. They have the Nexus in their eyes, and they're looking to take game one.
All comes back to that fight at Dragon where G2, as we pointed out, had the realization, just hit the front line, hit whoever's available. We have enough damage, we can chew through them. And G2 take game number one.
Patience, the name of the game in that game.
But also zero hesitation from Caps. This is the regular season form that we know Caps for. He walks away with 14 kills to his name in game one, just short of a penta. G2, a bit of a sketchy start. PSG proving why they are so scary and why they were able to push BLG. Betty, once again, alongside Maple, proving what they can do in these team fights. But once G2 shifted gears, they were able to come out on top. But it just goes to show how close this series really can be.
Really can be. PSG showed us a lot of good things in that game. And you have to remember, against BLG, they did go behind as well, and then they were able to fight back in the best of 5, even though they weren't quite able to make it in the end. We're going to do something, I'm sure. Let's head over to the analyst desk to break down that game.
A lot to break down here, actually. Thank you so much, Medic. G2 opens up the score here. Yeah, sorry. I mean, you're all EU fans here. You're all Western fans.
That's true.
Not
even close.
We've been adopted. Yeah, welcome to G2 Games. Not even close. I mean, doubters and people, yeah.
For what it's worth, like, the way the team fights played out at the end was G2 just having way better frontline, way more tools, and better scaling with the way Caps was able to play with their engage at the end of the game.
Yeah. We'll say, though, the early game, a little concerned, Lore.
Yeah, it was a bit confusing what they did here.
How many times does Zach need to die with bombies under turret? That's the question here.
Well, at least twice. We don't know the upper limit,
True.
but we know what the floor
Someone
is.
out there in chat, if you can make a counter by the end of MSI, we need that stat.
We'll see if they can make it better in the early game for the next games, but actually it didn't take that much for them to come back. Just one good opportunity, and we know that every second counts in League of Legends. And thanks to the reliable Cisco network, Caps buys time for his teammates, actually, and the rest join and turn up the fight.
Yeah, the TP comes through. There's a 3-man dive that's happening, but no Q3 from Cassante, so there was a time for him to just be able to buffer the W. Another win from Caps is that he sticks behind the turret, so there's no way from Nautilus to come in and combo it with a Q, so the turret's between him and him. So, like, it allows the rest of the team to come in clutch and save the fight.
And the back end of this, you could see Mickey being super clutch with Hans Sama there to get the 1-for-1 and then buy time for the rest of the team to close out this fight. But as was the case with most fights, Caps was key at the start of it, and Caps was key at the finish of it as well, with a really nice reset into double kill here. Betty actually did amazing here in this bush to almost get a trade kill on the Caps.
Yeah, we don't want to see the rest of that one.
Yeah, cut the video. It's fine.
Just to save him.
No, Caps actually did live. He actually did kill him.
Yeah.
We'll highlight Caps a bit later, but we know how deadly his Tristana can be. Actually, an amazing mid lane pick right now so far at MSI, but G2, I don't want to talk about the objective control fights and the way they approach them, because there's been some difficulties here, but the way they manage to turn this one, this is the key moment in the game, I feel. This is the moment you know that G2 is going to be able to grab up the win.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity because they end up getting a Nautilus hook on the Zac, who's like, I will take that actually. And not only that, Betty can't hit. Just simply put, he is completely separated from the rest of his team, so the whole chase down that G2 end up going for, he's not able to participate.
I'd say a couple of things as we zoom out a little bit led up to this fight. So one thing is Aja's Cassante built Hollow Radiance for the laning phase against Broken Blade, but that was one big 3,000 gold item that wasn't dedicated to living against Tristana, Jarvan, Kalista. So he was not nearly as tanky as you'd expect later in the game. The second thing would be every clip was Caps just getting more and more gold, and once he was at 3 or 4 items, it really, really simplified team fights for G2 because they could just hit front. Not only was the front building an MR item because he needed to in lane phase, secondly, they had far more DPS. And I will say, I hope this is a calming game for G2 because there were definitely moments in the game where they looked a little nervy, specifically the sequence when Broken Blade died under turret, lost his flash, and about 30 seconds after that, Caps flashed behind turrets to try to kill Maple's Talia and didn't get it. So both solo laners blew flash for very poor reasons After that, though, they were able to stabilize.
Yeah, and speaking about that, like, nerviness, we heard from Dylan before the game talking about just not overforcing and being patient with your leads. And then you get that 18-minute fight in the Dragon that they ended up losing, and that was because they just straight up engaged way past into the blue side jungle. And Han Sama's like, I don't have flash. I'm at the Dragon. I cannot help you guys, and I'm your damage. So, like, that's another example of, like, let them come to you. Because they're walking into Fog, you are the one with the stronger front line. They cannot walk into your J4 and Zach, so don't put yourself in a position where you're tanking for nothing.
They readjusted,
yes,
though.
Exactly.
And adapted throughout the game. Maybe, as I said, maybe cleaner game next time, cleaner early game. I feel like that's the feedback that D-Line is going to give them.
Yep.
On the side of PSG, though, what do we think? Because
oh boy.
we usually are used to seeing them grabbing lanes and just locking up the game until the point the opponent cannot come back. What missed here, do you feel?
Maple played great on Talia.
Yep.
Betty was great on Varus. They had a strong laning phase. Then they just lost team fights afterwards. It's a tricky game to feedback because I'm not going to say, like, oh yeah, Aja can't build the thing he needs when he's getting slaughtered in lane by a magic damage champion. So I think they just kind of run it back, try not to tilt. Controlling Trist would be a big thing at the very end of it, but that's minor because Caps has like 85 champions you can play.
And for me, that top lane dive that we saw that G2 comes out with a win, there are examples in which if you see the TP, you can back away. If you're confident that you can take it, that I think Cassante should just have Q3 ready. If you're trying to dive a Tristana, it's going to be difficult because that one window that you give him a chance to buffer W, he's going to be able to do it. So just be able to execute on those fights a lot more, and that would just be my overall take. I did like the fact that they hovered mid lane and that one timing that Mickey walked in and died because, once again, like that was the window that G2 had, and then they overstayed. So looking for those opportunities, I think, will get them a game.
We know PSG's resilience, though. We know their ability to turn series around and surprise everyone, which is what they've been doing so far. Any draft adjustment on their side, maybe? Because, as you said, banning G2, especially the mid lane, is not the easiest thing to do.
I just don't like what people are picking into Poppy's support. I'm just going to put it out there.
Thank you. Yes.
Like, we
Nautilus.
saw... Exactly. Nautilus, I wasn't a big fan. It's just really difficult to engage with Vi and Nautilus into Poppy's support. We saw T1 pick Camille into it. Please, I would just enjoy if you're like an Enchanter support in generally, or just like a bot lane that has like maybe Jinx Lulu or something like that. Just anything that's generally easier, because if you see this draft, I think they had the right information and then they just kind of walked into it. So
yeah, you can say their bans game one, Rek'Sai, Orianna, Draven. I think you could ban Zach in the 4-5 if it's going to last that long. I don't necessarily know if I want to drop one of those 3 core bans for PSG, but I don't want to let Broken Blade have Zach just because of the just ridiculous effectiveness it has in starting and finishing fights for Broken Blade. So that would be the one small adjustment I make for PSG.
All right, let's see if they listen to your guys' advice. As we go to break, though, PSG and G2 are backstage at MSI, so let's check out thanks to the OppoCam.
大家好，我是 PSG 的辅助 Woody。然后下一轮的话，我们会证明我们 PCS 赛区的实力的。
Hey guys, it's G2 here. Thank you guys for the support, and I hope you guys will be watching us at MSI. See you there. See ya. See ya.
Can't get out of my head. 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 Get out of my head. Can't get out of my head. Can't get out of my head. Can't get out of my head. What's going on in my head? I can't see clearly. I've tried to breathe like you said, but can't calm down. And now my thoughts take a run. My mind feels weary. I try to feel what is real, but can't slow down. Can't get out of my head. Can't get out of my head. Get out of my head. Can't 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 get out of my head.
And welcome back to MSI 2024 here in Chengdu, China. We are ready for Game 2 between G2 and PSG in this elimination series. Let's get into the draft. Lickety split. PSG elected to be on the red side, so we'll see exactly what they want to do. I'm still Medic, still Chronicler, that's still Vedi over there. Yeah, I just want to see the draft. I want to see more League of Legends. Senna, Ashe, and Lucian banned away by G2. Zac, the new ban from PSG, replacing the Draven before. Kalista picked by G2, and it looks like we might get Betty's Draven.
I'm gonna say, I don't like G2's Kalista. I've not been impressed by it. I understand the idea is that it gives you a strong laning phase. I do get it, but it hasn't been it for me. It does look like PSG is looking to run it back, though. G2's going to run it back as well. PSG, is it the Taliyah lock-in for Maple? I mean, their team fighting was still great in the early parts. They ended up losing out on the front to back, but they've said, we think that the Zac was the problem. Does G2 now just shift their priorities and instead prioritize something like the Cassante? Maybe PSG want to get the Rumble. Nope, they're going to look like they'll say, you know what? They're going to do the salty run back.
Run it back. I do. The only reason I like the Kalista sometimes is the Fate's Call. It allows me to be truly a madman going into the back of fights.
It's why Kalista support works. You just have the one button, and it's like, remember when Kench, you know, his Devour was that's all the only reason. Same thing here.
It shouldn't be the same thing when it's 80 carry Kalista though. You should have some damage alongside it.
That doesn't matter. Who cares about 80 carries, man? They're not relevant. As we are currently at 3 weeks into the tournament with 80 carries getting basically single rotated every single time. Big thing here for me, the salty run back for PSG. I hope the Nautilus gets swapped up. I do think that we saw that Woody, when he had Flash, could make cool plays, and outside of that, just tried to engage on Poppy, and then Mickey would press W, and it wouldn't really do a whole lot. So hopefully that'll be swapped up. I think the support counter pick is something where they can find a little bit more freedom, especially because they're guaranteed to know where everything is going on G2. And they have that R5. They picked red side, so I hope they use it for not an R5 Cassante.
So they've replaced a LeBlanc with a Tristana. So obviously G2 is not going to be able to run back their same composition. I don't imagine G2 is going to ban away the Nautilus. I imagine they'll stick with the Renata. No reason not to. The question is, how will they approach their draft now? Will the LeBlanc, in fact, be prioritized for caps? Bear in mind, this was the man that, even though the AD LeBlanc got nerfed multiple times, he still said, no, I'm still going to play it. He's a big LeBlanc enthusiast.
PSG.
PSG is just doing exactly the same thing. They've got rid of the Zac and the Tristana, which were the 2 picks for G2. On
I don't like that smile from Caps.
Smile from Caps. Hey, Dylan, we got to go Vayne. We got to go Vayne, Dylan.
Don't get baited by the hovers, guys. G2 is, they love playing around with your hearts. Something like an Azir. Twisted Fate top is going to be the angle for G2. All right, so the possibility of a lane swap. This also should deter the Cassante, but again, maybe they don't. Maybe PSG say, that's fine, we'll lane swap and we'll make your Twisted Fate really miserable, and that's okay with us.
That said, one of the big problems that we saw in the last game was it was really hard for PSG to reliably use Betty in fights because of the backline threat that was there with the... I'm not going to get baited by Harvard guy. There we go. As, it is the LeBlanc you were talking about. LeBlanc J4, that's a 2v2 that goes back a very, very long time. Really, really strong in the 2v2.
It's Cap's second most played across the course of his career. 71% win rate on it. Very comfortable on the champ. So I have to see how effective he can be in this game. PSG going through their picks right now.
Jax.
We saw the Jax. We saw the Yasuo as well. Something Broken Blade has been using into the Twisted Fate himself. I wonder where we will.
They're going to lock it in. All right, Aja. I like this. Can be a great matchup into the Twisted Fate. Can basically just because of the E on the Jax, obviously great at dealing with a heavy auto attack based champion. I also think it can make the life very miserable for a Kalista too. I ultimately like what PSG have. They have very similar front to back. Their front line isn't as strong, but they have a bit more backline threat now. Once the Vi is diving in, the Jax is going to be there to work with the Vi a little bit more. While the back might be a little bit more vulnerable, there's not as much follow-up as there was before, because once the Jarvan goes in, there's not going to be a Zac to follow. Twisted Fate might get a little creative with how he uses the Destiny, but I think there's going to be a lot more dynamics in terms of how the fights play out. It's not as straightforward as a traditional front-to-back this time around.
For G2, a bit more finesse involved. The Zac-Jarvan combination we saw in that game really be so tough to deal with. Very straightforward. Just get onto the enemy front line, Mickey will isolate a target, and then we'll go from there. This time around, much more side laning pressure, though. That is something that PSG is going to have to be able to deal with. Early 2v2 towards top, though. Jax, particularly if he ends up going lethal tempo, can be such a menace in the early game. We'll see if PSG is actually going to utilize that to try and find an early lead. Because last time, the early game was actually fine. It was more mid-game where the trouble started arising.
Feels like a bit more of an explosive game here. No real tanks on either side. The Jax, obviously, with the Counter-Strike can be a bit tanky. Maybe we'll see both the junglers going down a tankier route, but expectations are that fights will be blink and you miss it, with a Blanc jumping in, with Talia Seismic shoving. We'll have to see which team is able to come out on top. PSG and G2 both lost their first games earlier on in the tournament against BLG and T1 respectively. Here it is G2 who are out to an early lead, but you can never count PSG out. Doing the PCS proud so far at this tournament. It's been a long time since we've seen a PCS representative take down a major region in a best-of-5, all the way back to when TPA won Worlds in 2012, where they beat Azubu Frost in the finals.
Main thing that we see here is Aji instead going for the Fleet, which in lane obviously gets a ton of value. The movement speed is nice, the extra sustain helps into this bully matchup. And then also Betty, this time around, he doesn't have as much frontline and he's not playing into as much frontline, so just going to be playing the Lethality Varus with a lot more squishy targets. Going to be easy to get value out of that.
One of the things we didn't see much of from PSG in the first game was Maple and Junja working together to attack mid, but then also translate any pressure towards bot. While the early laning phase was very neutral across the boards. I think that in this game, you have to expect G2 to want to fight a lot more.
I mean, they're fighting already.
Well, the bot lane, it shouldn't come as a surprise, but LeBlanc Jarvan can be a terrifying mid-jungle duo, and I think that it is worth Ginger investing some of his time, maybe burning a flash out from Caps, or just trying to alleviate some of that pressure, because once Caps does get level 3, he's going to be feeling himself after that first game. He's going to be feeling confident, and the more time he gets to play on stage, the more comfortable he naturally feels. So Maple, even though he's going to have the early push during these early levels, he's going to have to respect that potential setup that LeBlanc will have with the Jarvan.
One big thing here, though, is that there's already been double wards played, so I think that PSG is trying to give Maple the most freedom he has to just play for the very aggressive shove early on, whereas G2's wards, both in the jungle, pretty sure Junja is going to get spotted when he goes towards his Raptor, so they're going to have a good idea of where he will be pathing towards, meaning that Mickey and Hans know exactly what the plan is going to be, unless Junja has a major swap from what you'd expect in terms of pathing.
Azure in a bit of a sticky situation here. Ranged into melee is always hard for the melee, but especially when Yike actually pathed towards the top side, placed his ward in the middle bush, and then went for the sweeper second. So now Broken Blade has his ward for this second push, meaning that Azure can't just dip in and out of the bush to get a minion, go back in, go out of vision, avoid the auto attacks. It makes it a lot easier for Broken Blade to actually harass him down.
Hansamah did miss a cannon there, so already the early mental advantage in favor of PSG.
And you would Twitch chat entirely on there, like, -1.
I mean, it's important, man. You've got to keep track of that. Mickey doing what he often does, trying to get some information, drops the ward, will spot out Junja. I don't think he can steal it, but he's going to be annoying. He's got to be careful, as Woody is looking to collapse too. But there's that level 3 for Caps, and now you're going to start to see him exert a lot more pressure in the 1v1.
Does lose his passive. And we'll just step it in front of Maple to try and get some of those threaded volleys hitting the clone instead of hitting the minion wave. Azure down to 300 HP. In the bot lane, Mickey and Hansamah have the push. Hook onto Mickey, though. Hammer smash. Mickey takes about half his health. Ginger walks around the Sentinel, going up towards that Scuttle Crab. Looks like Yike was spotted as he came across here. Goes on to Ginger. Mickey looking for the dash into the wall. Ginger flashes away. Bolt breaker. Mickey flashes it. Heroic charge into the wall. But where's Hansamah? Not here with his team right now. Caps moving down. Maple here to join the play. It's a 3v3. As Betty tries to get away. Yike jumps across. Hansamah takes one. Maple already down to 200 HP as G2 continue to collapse. Woody has flash. Can he get away? Dredgeline, Riptide should be able to flash if Caps jumps in. He does exactly that. Caps can't jump back. Seismic shove going wide. Maple, the chains still connect. Yike not going in, but Woody looks for the re-engage. And Woody, what are you doing? Buzz isn't here to help you. Maple is tapped as well. Tremendous play by G2.
A disaster for PSG. They lose 4 members 4 minutes into the game. Junja, he thinks that he can go for this fight. Mickey only level 2. They try to force it. They think that they can collapse first, but in the extended fight, the pressure that Caps has in mid, the early skirmishing power of the Callista means that G2 walk away with 4 kills.
Big thing here is that, yes, they're able to take down Mickey, but it takes so long because of the flash, the amount of damage he's able to get down, it takes so many resources. And then here, you're with a Callista and a LeBlanc, so these longer trades where you can just continuously use your mobility, use your chasing power are so hard to play out for PSG. They get overeager, and then here things go from bad to worse.
And Woody, he tries to lock Yike underneath the tower. He's thinking maybe we can do something here. But the shield wears off. Caps gets another kill, and then Yike lands the E. Flash auto to secure it. 4 kills for G2.
In our picture-in-picture as well, we did see a dive materializing on Broken Blade in the top lane, but Yike was there to answer. Mickey looking for Woody here. He's at 300 HP, puts the steadfast presence down, gets the knock into the wall. Hansamah will rend one, but Betty has the mana and the health advantage here as Hansamah has to dance away. Does have double summoners. Should be able to burn the flash here if Betty charges up the arrow. Hansamah flashes it.
One of the big things when you have the Varus is that as soon as a kill comes down, that passive, even if you don't have lethal tempo, goes hard. So I think in the end, PSG is not going to feel too bad about that trade forcing the flash, but it's not enough by itself because, again, due to that early skirmish, they're going to need to find more of these.
And this is also, Betty has a serrated Dirk, and Hansamah is still starting on his starting item. Like, so G2 trying to take this play, they're obviously just trying to get the wave in, but it's very greedy from them to look for this 2v2.
You can see Mickey trying to get the knock into the wall. Hansamah very low on mana as well. He does get that initial kill, but then Betty, as you highlighted, Chronica, the passive comes up, and he's able to just run Hunt Summer down. He doesn't quite secure the kill, but he does get the flash out, so that advantage that G2 had earlier has now been lost.
See gold even between the two AD carries right now. A lead for Caps in the mid lane, though. 1-0-1 on this LeBlanc as Woody tries to clear out the minion wave. Caps is here, though. The Ignite ticking. And Mickey puts another Ignite down, actually just getting Woody low. Junja trying to get away as well as he'll escape underneath the tower. I thought Woody was done for there. Mickey's Ignite not ticking for long enough.
No one dies. So PSG is like, they used a bunch of resources. We make it out alive. But it's still G2 that is going to maintain the pressure here. Another early objective in the form of this crab going to Yike.
It's one of the things that we talked about. Well, hang on, I think Broken Blade, oh, he might not be okay.
Grandmaster's mic coming out from Azure. Broken Blade does have the flash, and Azure just using that damage. Blue card locked in, highest DPS of all the cards.
So just a bit of pressure being exerted by Azure towards the top side of the map. But one of the biggest differences is the skirmishing power that G2 has this time round. The fact that it is a LeBlanc instead of a Tristana. While Tristana definitely has some decent damage, you're seeing how much more willing G2 is to actually fight in these early trades. And PSG, I think that they're kind of being caught off guard. Game 1 was a very slow, passive trade back and forth where PSG was able to accrue small advantages, but now G2 is just really bringing the fight to them, moving around the map a lot and trying to fight as often as they can.
PSG is still attempting to make plays. There's still Maple there, Shadow towards top. Maybe looking for a dive on Broken Blade, even with his flash. You know, maybe he can get a flash counter-strike off, but not only was Caps already rotating as well, and I think that's why they called it off, Yike was also standing in between Tier 1 and Tier 2, waiting to see if something would happen. Wasn't the case. PSG, they gotta keep finding, or keep looking and try and find some of these openings.
So there's this wave starting to stack up in this bot side of the map. Junja is pathing towards bot with level 6. Does set up for a potential dragon, maybe even a dive. The problem is Maple really can't get out of this lane. We talked earlier about how I'd love to see Junja actually come mid, try and alleviate some of the pressure that Caps is putting down. While Caps is low on mana, you can see what he's able to do. He still has control over the wave. Maple is very hesitant to actually approach, and I think that if Junja doesn't do something about this, they can't leverage one of the big strengths of Maple, which is his ability to roam and utilize that wall to lock down the bot lane.
And the threat is also BB pushing out top lane, now just walking towards mid. He was spotted on a ward.
Maple
Lots of things happened on him. So Maple knows he could be collapsed on. Junja now here to answer. Blast going in by Yike. There's the Destiny. Will G2 still go for this? Maple no flash. Junja there with the Bolt Breaker just to try and stop any advances, and G2 decide that the turret plate is enough.
One of the big things about this is we talked about that bot wave that was stacking. That's now gone. That window, that opportunity that Junja potentially had to make something happen has disappeared. And that's just from the pressure that G2 is able to exert in mid lane. And you can see how suffocating it is for PSG, how they're very quickly losing options in terms of what they can do in the early game. But definitely shouldn't count them out. We think about their late scaling options. We know that their team fighting is strong. We saw a very similar composition to this in the previous game. They have a lot of single target lockdown. They have a lot of pick potential. And Aja in a side lane is going to be someone that's very difficult to manage for this G2 composition. So even though they find themselves at a deficit for now, it's not all doom and gloom for PSG.
Biggest issue that PSG are gonna find, or rather are gonna be able to deal with, is simultaneously not losing all pressure on the map, but also respecting G2's skirmishing power, right? The downtime of this ultimate, for example, from Broken Blade is something that you're going to look towards, but that is where, to me, and the desk highlight is as well, this Poppy pick is such a nuisance. One of the biggest advantages that you have is Maple.
Maple gets out. Just eats a distortion to the face.
Yeah, as I was saying before Caps rudely interrupted me, forcing out the ultimate though, which denies Maple, again, that map pressure that even if he does get out of lane, now not going to be able to find, is that Vi Nautilus specifically is so good at getting you out of rough situations. But if you try to play that into Fate's Call and Poppy just in general, it is so much harder, particularly when you have two very mobile characters in the Jarvan and the LeBlanc.
You can see a bit of an interesting sequence here. The bot lane from PSG has both backed. You can actually see Betty opening through bot lane, so he's going to try and match Hansama. Both the supports, though, are pathing through that mid lane. With Grubs now up, PSG have almost perfect information of the surrounding area. Caps is going to base, likely has his first item and has the TP, immediately uses it. There's the Luden's Companion. Will PSG decide to take this fight?
They're looking at it. Kalista looks like it's going to be making his way towards bot. Last time we did see Betty rotate, but PSG, this is the skirmishing power that G2 have with this composition. They're a little hesitant. They don't want to take the gamble, and they're going to concede. That means that G2 have secured first dragon, all 6 of the grubs, And something that you talked about, Chronicler, in the draft was how G2 do have a lot more side lane threats. Those 6 scrubs are going to offer a lot of value when it comes to sieging those towers, and Twisted Fate just being a split-pushing menace.
It's really tough. Additionally there, PSG, the moment they lose control of the banana brush, they're like, we can't walk up, right? Mickey, especially with Flash, easy for him to lock down, but it's kind of a lose-lose situation here for PSG. I agree with the call to not go for something there, but they're not really finding anything on the cross map either, because as you mentioned, Hans was at the ready to call. So PSG getting to the objective, then seeing that it's not that great and then backing off means that you're going to fall a little bit behind. The lead that Aji was able to build up in topside, now slowly starting to fall away again, and it was one of the few, I think, moments, or opportunities rather, for PSG.
Caps look for Maple, first chain lands. Maple takes half his health. He's 2 levels down as well. He's in such a hole right now.
One of the... oh, hang on a second. Caps
would have to jump back onto the Unraveled Earth here. He does so. Ginger finds him, but Yike's already got 1. Caps dashes back. Will be able to escape from the clutches of Ginger, and Ginger now needs to try and escape. Vault Breaker! Oh! Is that Civ HD? I see on my screen. You just can't touch him. Caps gets another.
Caps and Yike, the mid-jungle 2v2 coming out on top. Betty uses the ult.
And Summer has the face call here. Mickey might just flash, hammer, shots into the wall. The cleanse will be enough, but not as he tries to get away at the end. Woody coming in, stops the keeper's verdict, but Woody, in a moment, will realize there's no minion wave here for him to defend. He will... Well, he's not going to allow Mickey to walk... Oh, Mickey. Mickey tanked the tower. The Ignite will tick on him. Flash. Oh, Mickey. He didn't need to hit Woody. What are you doing, Mickey?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe he thought he was already in range for Fate's call before the tower shot comes in.
Maybe, because Maple was also initially heading towards bot, and his ultimate was like 5 seconds of cooldown.
Top lane play, PSG,
or it was just a mistake. I don't know. You guys are
making a mistake.
You guys are better at judging that than I am. Okay, I'm gonna leave you to be the judge of that.
We don't call him Mickey XT for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's either Mickey X marks the spot or Mickey XD, and you know, you get a bit of A and a bit of B. Now, G2 obviously find themselves in a commanding position, a 4K gold lead, largely off the back of this mid-jungle duo. Yike making his presence known in the enemy jungle. Mickey at his back. There's Caps.
Woody trying to get away. They jump onto Maple instead, and Mickey's here once again. Caps with the chase. Destiny, where you going? Maple across the wall, but the gold card will follow you. Broken Blade locks it in and puts Maple in the dirt. Now Ginger next up for G2. They continue to collapse, dodge the hook. Betty coming in from the side as well, but he realizes they're outnumbered right now. The chains connect on Ginger. We'll just take him down to half HP. All this play likely over a Rift Herald into a Drake.
This game is rapidly deteriorating for PSG. They're losing full control. They're no longer able to walk into their own jungle. And the moment, especially against the Fet LeBlanc, this mid lane turret falls, you're going to be in so much trouble as Woody just dies!
Just decomposes in front of our very eyes. Chain of Corruption did land onto Yike. Ginger coming in as well, but you can't Vault Breaker out of the steadfast presence! And the Cataclysm is the death knell for PSG. 12 kills to 3, a 6,000 gold lead for G2.
I mean, Caps is just a menace. We talked about how in game 1 he was playing with so much more confidence. You give him the LeBlanc, one of his most comfortable champions, and he is just running circles around PSG.
Azure looking for something up in the top lane, has the Triforce complete. The gold card locked by BB, will only buy him a second. Yike is here, BB flashes the wall, and Yike dashes away. Importantly though, Azure able to stop the Rift Tower from going down. G2 had to react to defend their top lane. Hansama getting chased out by Maple here, the Weaver's Wall. Available for Maple. Will he go for more? The answer is a negative. TP behind. Never mind, G2. They love to fight. It's Caps. Woody there for it. Weaver's Wall away. Woody will be able to walk to the safety of his tower. There's no terrain there for him to dash to. He catches Caps underneath the turret. The mites! The mites! Ah, that's why they're called mites and not the cans. Can't take down the turret right now.
Oh my goodness. There, Caps is going to secure it. 12 kills to 3, an 8k gold difference. Caps is just running amok, and I mean, you have to give credit to Yike and Mickey too. They've just been working so closely with Caps. Every opportunity, roaming towards mid, and just punishing anything that PSG tries to do. The saving grace for PSG is Aja.
BB, no flash, gold card locked. Yike coming in as well. Ginger tanking that turret. Azure flashes away as BB will fall, but Ginger pays for the dive with his life. Hansama on the chase, Fate's call. Possible, but unlikely to chase any further here as Azure has a half HP tower to retreat to.
Mickey with his dead man's plays like, I'm running. I got Swifties. I'm on my way. Unfortunately, thanks to Junja's sacrifice,
Aja.
Oh boy.
Nope, he doesn't.
Can you kill him? Counter-Strike used early. Maybe you can. Knocked into the wall. He's running. And he smashes Aja against the side of Summoner's Rift.
I think the Poppy might be a problem, and I think PSG need to seriously.
I feel like we've had this conversation
Yeah,
before.
we have done so many times. And then I imagine they watched T1 win the game. I was like, oh, you know what? Poppy's fine. It's no problem. The problem now for PSG is because they're so far behind. G2 is winning as many sides of the map as humanly possible. That's not allowed. You get to usually win one while the opponent trades, but because the gold leads are so oppressive, Caps has a Crypt Bloom.
The risk for G2 is they are playing undermanned fights at times. Azure has TP in. He's going to go to the mid lane. Hans Sommer still in the top lane, but the keeper's verdict makes this a 4v3. Maple falls first. Betty short to follow. BB gets the double. Dredgeline away by Woody, but that anchor is sending him to the depths. Hans Sommer, all the meanwhile, he's doing damage to turrets.
It's as you say, Chronicler, PSG, no matter what they do on the map, they're just getting stopped by the aggression of G2. I liked the idea of the cross map on top when they tried to attack Broken Blade. Yes, they got that kill, but it ended up with Aja dying. They also lost the top tier 1, and then Cap still moves down to bot. There's Yike there also to contest the Dragon. This game is rapid. I mean, it's not rapidly. It is gone. It is deteriorated. It is in pieces, tatters. There is a 12k goal difference, and we're not even at 20 minutes.
I'm sure Medic has some great puns about the maple tree withering away.
I have a good question, though. Why can Mickey do this when I take all the kills as support in solo queue, I get flanked? Okay, most kills on the team. Didn't go Sundered Sky this game, but Cap's going to chase out Woody as he tries to flash away. Woody more of a walking 150 gold right now as...
That's a support!
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not taking damage. I actually have the answer to that one. In the wise words of Carrier, remind everyone, you are not Carrier, and your teammates are not T1. So in this case, you are not Mickey, you are not Mickey, and your teammates are not G2 Medic.
Very true. For PSG though, so far in the hole, they can barely see the light at the top of it. It's such a struggle for them to get back in this game, and you have to think that their eyes will be going to game 3 and maybe adjustments in the draft.
Maybe?
I mean, you understand why they would want to run it back. From their perspective, everything was going well. It was just that when it came to the late game team fights, their front to back, they weren't as strong as G2. So they said, you know what, we'll remove some of their front to back elements and we'll make it easier for us to team fight. And then G2 said, how about we don't team fight? How about we just fight you 2v2, 3v3? And Caps has become a very serious problem.
Counter-Strike, heroic charge into the wall. Counter-Strike dodged, and Azure, yeah, that's not blue skies for the top laner from PSG.
I mean, what's also crucial here is notice how G2, they're not being overzealous with their aggression, right? One of the things that we know about G2 coming into this series, they put a lot of pressure on themselves. They remember what happened at last year's Worlds. They knew that they were heavy favorites coming into that series against NRG, and they fell short. They didn't want that blunder to happen again. And coming into today, they wanted to treat this opponent just like they treated T1. And the patience and execution that they currently demonstrate show that level of reservation. They're not diving tier 3 towers. They're not getting overzealous that we often see.
Keep going, Benny. Keep going. Keep building it up.
Curse is what you're
Be prepared for the largest casting curse the world has ever seen.
Oh, come on.
It's G2 casting it's Benny casting a G2 game.
13k gold up.
Surely.
Atlas has been on the wrong end of these before.
He has.
And the inhibitor getting pushed here. Flash in, sees an assist. Caps flashes away from the chain of corruption. Azure trying to dive on the backline. But look at the might. PSG just surrounded by the oncoming hordes of G2's minions. Broken Blade now on the inhibitor tower in the mid lane as they're looking for more. Caps continues to dash in. Betty takes half his health without the chains even landing. And Woody takes more. That's a Cataclysm. Finds an easy avenue for G2 to lock up PSG. And they were taking their time, but now they're not ready. 21 minutes into the game, G2 will rip through PSG and go one game away from making it into the next round of MSI.
An absolute shellacking of PSG here. And we talked about it, the draft, you got to completely switch it up. You can go blue side, you can bend it up. Something needs to change. In game 1, PSG held on to, I don't know, like what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes before a fight kind of took them out of the game. Here, it was a level 4 skirmish in the river, Vetty.
I mean, yeah, G2, they're playing well, they're playing clean, We'll see if they can maintain that level, but as you rightly said, PSG, they need to change something up, whether it be about trying to find more skirmishes in the early game, giving themselves a little bit more agency. I think back to their series versus BLG, when we saw Betty on the Zeri, and they had the Zeri Lulu, and they were diving bot. They were fighting Elkanon on their territory. That was the best version of PSG I felt like that we've seen, and we haven't seen that so far in this series. I want to see that level of aggression, that level of confidence to go toe-to-toe with G2 in the early game.
Totally agree with you, Betty. We'll see what the analysts agree, if they agree with you as well in a moment, but don't forget to log into lolesports.com using your Riot ID to earn exclusive MSI 2024 drops. We're going to hand it over to the analysts to see if Betty is correct, which he is. He's smart.
Is he? Really? He's very correct? I don't know. The
what?
confidence is clearly on G2's side here. Setting up the fact that this is what is missing from PSG, the confidence they had, the aggressivity that they displayed in the previous games. We haven't seen this so far, and I'm just wondering why.
For PSG side, oh my God, they tried. These fights are just not working out for them. That early fight that happened in the bot side river that just bled into more and more. And then when the Nautilus hooked or tried to hook under turret, like the J4 under turret, mostly because he was expecting, this is the play that I was talking about. Just go for it.
This is like the fanciest int I've seen in years.
Oh my God.
They had their pinky up and everything.
Because PSG, they did technically get first blood, but the play Mickey made to start it was great. And then I feel like at this point they're just chasing it. Because Woody and Maple could be out, right? The play is over, but they keep stepping up, chasing more things back. They land the hook, and then Maple's like, you know,
Not like this.
yeah.
And from
I guess he thought he didn't have flash.
And from Not's perspective, he probably thought EQ was back up, and with the
And the
Talia
passive,
chain,
yeah.
that he would have been able to get the kill anyway. So like, there's a lot there, and they fell so insanely far behind Jet. You had even mentioned the experience deficit that Maple had in comparison to the 8 and Han Sama.
Yeah.
He was completely out of the game.
We legitimately had a discussion, and I know we're never going to see a pro team do this.
Yeah.
But when it's 60 minutes in and you're 13,000 goal behind,
Yeah.
the best thing to do might actually be to end the game.
Yeah.
You might actually want to surrender because
Open
isn't it
mid.
better to not die more? Because that's the only thing that's going to happen from that point.
They were preying on any mistake, and credit to G2, like, they bled that lead, which was just ballooning into bot lane. The moment Talia went bot side, he's like, oh, you want to take bot lane wave now?
Oh, man.
No, that LeBlanc's following you with the Poppy, with the J4.
And they just steamrolled, and I want to look at this guy here, Yike,
Yes.
in the jungle, the maestro for me of the early game. And it's been a consistent key of victory for G2, the way he sets up his lane. And we see it in game, but also the amount of information he's going to bring to his laners, for me, it's making wonders here for G2.
And I want to talk about him as a like tournament wide so far. Just the 2 series that he's had has been incredible. Like just the last series versus T1, like outside that last game where it was tough off the level 1, he was constantly working with Caps, skipping camps to be able to get like side lane ganks off of him. He was playing incredibly well, and he's extending it to this series. The confidence is massive for him, and I love to see it.
I mean, he's had such an accomplished career. And I know, Laura, you wanted to talk about this a little bit, like we were in between games, that you were saying in the LEC that people are asking the question, like, has Caps reached new heights? It's hard because, like, he's won MSI, he's made a world final. I feel like what made him so dynamic in the past was partially the dynamic he had with flex picks, with perks, when they could play mages all over the map whenever they wanted to. But, like, I imagine